It's here, March Madness, and it's all about the brackets now, of course. And I'm going to be filling out my 2024 March Madness bracket here right now. And a lot of picks, so we got to move quickly through a ton of them, but I'll stop here and there on some key matchups or some key teams that I think are going to make a strong push. So, starting off with the defending champions in the East, the number one overall seed, I'm going with the Yukon Huskies to beat Stetson, the 16th seed. Pretty easy game there. FAU and Northwestern. This should be a pretty good game. FAU went to the Final Four last year. Northwestern here. I think I'm going to go with Northwestern here just because I'm from Illinois. Shout out to the Evanston Wildcats. Moving on to the 5-12 seed, which I normally like to go with 12s over 5s. San Diego State is another team that also made the Final Four last year. But at this point, I'm going to go with San Diego State. I love their coach. I just love the way they play basketball there, and I'm going to go with San Diego State. Auburn versus Yale. This is kind of an upset alert matchup in the first round as well. A lot of people are going with Yale. I'm going with the SEC champions though, the Auburn Tigers. I love the Auburn Tigers this year and just the amount of ways that they can win on both sides of the ball. BYU, I'm going to go with BYU in this matchup. BYU can shoot the three, they can shoot lights out, and if they can catch heat, they can go pretty far in this tournament if they can consistently hit their 3-point shots. So they're the best 3-point shooting team in the tournament. I think they'll win their first matchup. Illinois against Morehead State. I'll go with Illinois there. Washington State and Drake, 7-10 matchup of a very favorable seeding matchup to go with the 10 seed, but I'm going to go with the 7 seed in the Washington State Cougars. Iowa State, South Dakota State. They put a routing on Houston. I'm going with Iowa State there. And that's the first round for the East. Moving over to the South now. Houston just suffered that devastating loss to Iowa State. I think they'll move past Longwood. I think they'll rebound from that game. Nebraska, Texas A&M. I like the way the Aggies play. I think they're a good 9 seed matchup against Nebraska, Texas A&M from the SEC. Played some tough teams. I think they'll move on. Wisconsin and James Madison. I've kind of gone chalk the first few picks. Here, I would go with James Madison. I think James Madison has a chance to make a little bit of a run. Wisconsin is a good 5 seed, but if you look at the matchups here, um, Wisconsin has suffered some bad losses against Arizona, 98-73. Um, I think there is I usually like picking the 12 seeds. This is the first 12 seed I'm going with. 12 seeds have had some chances against the 5 seeds, and I do believe that Wisconsin will fall to James Madison. Look, they put up 84 points, can score the basketball. If it can be a high scoring game, I like James Madison there. Duke, Vermont, I'll go with the Blue Devils there. Texas Tech and NC State. NC State made that improbable ACC tournament run to win the conference championship game. However, though, I do like Texas Tech from the Big 12, the best conference in college basketball this year. I'll stick with Texas Tech on that one. Kentucky, Oakland. Kentucky's got to make a run here for John Calipari. I hammer John Calipari for always getting in the tournament and getting all these recruits and not being able to make a run in the tournament. I think they do win this first matchup against Oakland. Florida against Boise/Colorado. I think the matchup is Colorado now, but I'm going to stick with Florida. Marquette and Western Kentucky. I'll go with the Golden Eagles from the Big East, another great college basketball conference this year. Moving on to the other brackets, starting with the West. North Carolina, who just lost to NC State in the ACC tournament. I'll stick with North Carolina, though. Michigan State, Mississippi State. A lot of people are picking Michigan State just because of Tom Izzo, and whenever he gets in the tournament, he always makes a run, no matter who is on his team. I will, although, go with Mississippi State here, and here's why. Mississippi State has played a tough, again, they play in the SEC, tough tournament. I like Hubbard a lot. He's a great player, scores 17 points a game. He's an absolute bucket getter. Smith, 8.4 rebounds per game. Great job on the boards there as well. I just think Mississippi State has got something in them this year. I know Michigan State is a great defense, only giving up 65 points a game. I don't know why. I feel like Mississippi State can win this game, and they possibly could go on a run against maybe if they beat North Carolina next round. Moving on to another 5-12, St. Mary's Grand Canyon. This is another upset alert possible game here. St. Mary's, um, they will be playing in Washington, so might help St. Mary's out a little bit more than Grand Canyon there. Both teams won at least 26 games. Grand Canyon almost won 30 games this year. Both teams are solid. St. Mary's, though, has a great defense, only giving up 58 points per game. GCU can put up some points, but I do think St. Mary's' defense will come to play and will come to show. I am sticking with St. Mary's as a 5 seed to win. Normally, I pick all the 12 seeds in tournaments. That hasn't worked out for me, so I'm going with some more 5s here. Alabama and Charleston, I'm going with Alabama. Solid move. Nate Oates just got extended. Clemson 6 versus 11. I am going New Mexico to upset Clemson here. Clemson was possibly on a bubble. They only won 21 games this year. New Mexico State won 26. They can put up some points. Jalen House is great for New Mexico State. He's one of the best guards, I would say, in this tournament. They can put up some points too. 81 points per game. So can Clemson, but I do like New Mexico State. They have played some tough teams. They're three for three against their top 25 opponents. I'm going with New Mexico State here. I have a feeling that New Mexico State can put up some points, can win some games here. Let's look at their seeding. They beat San Diego State by 18 points. They beat Utah State. They did, however, lose to San Diego State. Colorado State, who was in the tournament, and Boise State as well, who were in the first four. So they have played some tough teams. And I do think that they did win the Mountain West title as well. So they have one of the best offenses. I think New Mexico can get really hot here and can win this first matchup against Clemson. Baylor Colgate. I picked Colgate a few years ago to make a deep run. They disappointed me, so I'm sticking with Baylor, the Big 12 there. Dayton, Nevada. I'm going to go with Dayton here. The 7 seed. Normally pick more 10 seeds, but I do like Dayton. Deron Holmes puts up 20 points per game. Solid player for Dayton, and that's what I'm going with Dayton there. A lot of people are picking Long Beach State against Arizona. I know Arizona struggles in the tournament these past couple of years. I am, however, going to stick with Arizona to win and get to the round of 32. Moving on to the final first round matchups with Purdue and their 16th seed. I'm going with Purdue to win. I think they avenged their loss last year with the 16th seed. Utah State and TCU. TCU, a Big 12 team. I like the Horned Frogs to come out of that matchup as well. I don't know. I have a feeling a lot of Big 12 teams are going to be really good in this tournament. Both these teams put up high points, almost 80 points per game. I just think TCU's had a stronger road to get here to the tournament. They played, 11 top 25 teams. They have a better BPI ranking, 99 in conference, 14-4. I think Big 12 beats Utah State here. Gonzaga and McNeese. And now this matchup is another 5-12 seed. This has been a struggle. I've been going back and forth on what I'm going to do with this matchup. Gonzaga 25-7 on the year. McNeese, one of 3 teams to win 30 plus games in the tournament this year. They went 30-3, excuse me. Wells puts up 17.8 points per game. I like him a lot. Gonzaga has played some tough opponents like Purdue, UConn, both 1 seed. St. Mary's, they lost only by 2 points. They did beat a Kentucky team. They did beat St. Mary's. They lost the season record 2-1. But I don't know. I just like McNeese a little bit more. Gonzaga puts up a ton of points, but so does McNeese. They put up 80 points per game as well. They also hold their opponents to only 61 points per game. 17-1 in conference. They had a terrible out-of-conference schedule. Their conference isn't really that good, but neither is Gonzaga, but their out-of-conference is a lot better. I'm going to go with McNeese here, and I don't know if I like this pick. I always trust 1 or 2 high seeds to make a run. McNeese is one of those that I think could possibly make that run just because of their matchups here in their bracket. Kansas and Samford. This is a tough matchup too. I keep going back and forth on it. Kansas has struggled throughout the year. Kevin McCullough, who is their top leading point getter for Kansas, will not be in the tournament, will be missing the tournament. He got hurt in the Big 12 tournament. So tough blow for Kansas. Kansas has been up and down for throughout the season, losing to BYU, losing to Baylor, losing, just getting destroyed by Houston. They have beaten Houston, though. They have beaten Baylor. They've only lost Iowa State by 4 points. They did beat Tennessee. So Kansas is just up and down, so inconsistent. And Samford can put up some points here. I do like Samford to make the upset because McCullough is out. That is the defining factor for me between that matchup. Otherwise, I would go with Kansas if McCullough was going to be playing. Moving on to the 6-11 seed. A lot of people are picking Oregon to win this game. They had a deep run into the Pac-12 tournament. They won it. South Carolina plays in the SEC. They have had a tough schedule. They got absolutely blown out by Auburn, 101-61. So tough matchup there for them. The last time a number 6 seed won all 4 meetings against an 11 seed was in 2004. I do believe, yes, I have New Mexico as an 11 seed winning a tournament game there. I love the way South Carolina plays defense. I'm just going to inch out South Carolina. I don't feel good about this matchup, but I'm going to pick South Carolina. Creighton, Akron. I'll go with Creighton. Texas and Colorado State. I will go with Texas here. I just like the Big 12, obviously, a lot this bracket. A lot of my teams that I'm picking is based off of the Big 12. Tennessee and St. Peter's. St. Peter's made a deep run with Dougie a few years ago, beating Kentucky. I'm going to go with Tennessee here, though. Tennessee has kind of had a black cat running around their franchise or their program, just like Purdue, with early upsets. I'm going to go pick Tennessee, though, to win. So recap of the first round. I got a 9 seed winning. I got all sevens winning, which is a little bit nervous for me. I have all sevens winning, which I normally don't do that. Normally I go with more tens than sevens. So yeah, I have all sevens winning. We'll see how that goes. Maybe it'll do me better this year. But I do have 12 seed James Madison with an upset. McNeese and Sanford, both with upsets, 12 and 13s with upsets. New Mexico with an upset. So I got 4 upsets, pretty, at least 11 or further seedings making the round of 32. So I feel a little bit better with that. Normally I pick maybe 1 or 2, and that doesn't bode well for me because either that team loses or they don't make a deep enough run. Back to the round of 32, first matchup, UConn Northwestern. I think this could be a tough challenge for Northwestern, yes. And I think UConn moves on. San Diego State, Auburn. Both these teams made the Final Four last year. They'll meet up in the round of 32. However, I love Auburn this year. I'm picking Auburn to beat San Diego State. BYU against Illinois. Illinois has been very under the radar, even though they are a 3 seed. BYU, again, best 3-point shooting team in the country right now. But Teron Shannon, 23 points per game for Illinois. He's been on fire lately, especially in the Big Ten tournament, going with Illinois. Washington State, Iowa State. Iowa State looks like a very solid team. I'm going with them. Moving over to the South round of 32. Houston and Texas A&M. I'm very tempted to go with Texas A&M here. Very, very, very tempted to go with Texas A&M here. Houston, again, has won 30 games. One of 3 teams to do that. LJ Cryer, solid player for the Houston Cougars. I do think Houston edges this one out just because their defense is really, really good. They had some tough opponents, 6-2 at top 25. So I will go with Houston here, but I wouldn't be surprised if Texas A&M upsets Houston to go to the round of 16. James Madison and Duke. I think this is the run where James Madison comes to an end. I think Duke wins this game. A little bit more experience. I like John Shire, so I'm going with Duke there. Another blue blood, Kentucky versus Texas Tech. I like this matchup for Kentucky. They've been up and down throughout the season, but their bracket is very favorable for them with the first round matchup against Oakland and Texas Tech. Kentucky should make the Sweet 16 at least. Florida Marquette. Marquette is a really Final Four threat team. I think Florida comes up short here, and I'm going with Marquette. The west side of the round of 32, North Carolina, Mississippi State. This is another matchup where I think Mississippi State can bowl trouble for North Carolina and possibly put an upset in. But I am going to go with North Carolina to move on to the Sweet 16. St. Mary's in Alabama. St. Mary's is a great defense, as I said earlier, but I do like Alabama and their offense a lot better. Mark Sears, 21 points per game. I think Alabama wins this game. They put up 90 points per game. They do give up 81 though. So if either way, if this is a low scoring game, I think St. Mary's wins. If it's a high scoring game, I think Alabama wins. I think it's just that simple. So I think it's gonna be a high scoring game. I'm going with Alabama here. New Mexico versus Baylor. Texas versus New Mexico teams. Baylor, again, great 3 seed, have had some up and down games, though. They have played some tough matchups, though. So I this is a tough game for me, too, as well. But I will be going to New Mexico State here to upset the 3 seed and go to the Sweet 16 as the 11 seed. Dayton, Arizona. Arizona, again, has a little bit of a black cat running around their program. They do have Caleb Love now. So that'll be a good match between Holmes and Caleb Love, 18 points per game to 20 points per game. I do think I'm going to go with Arizona here. They put up 87 points per game. Dayton has a great defense, but Arizona has a solid one too as well. But I'm going with Arizona here to get to the Sweet 16. Moving over to the final round of 32 with the Midwest, TCU and Purdue. I've said before, the second round matchup for the 1 seeds with North Carolina has been tough. I think it could go either way. Same with this Texas A&M Houston one, could go either way. And I picked the 1 seeds, but this time I will be picking the 9 seed. I think TCU beats Purdue. Purdue, I just don't trust in the tournament. They have to prove it to me. I know they won 29 games. I know they only lost 4, but I just like TCU a little bit to upset here with their game. Purdue's got to prove it to me before I can actually put them far. So the last few brackets, they've just crumbled and haven't been a very big disappointment. So I'm going with TCU to upset Purdue as the first 1 seed to drop. Now the round of the ups, or the matchup of the upsets, McNeese and Samford, 12 versus 13. I hope this is the matchup. I really hope this is the matchup. This will be an exciting game between these two teams that are very unknown. Let's look at the details here. Number 12 seeds are 9-3 against number 13 seeds, excuse me. Last occurrence was number 12 Oregon defeating number 13 UC Irvine 73-54 in 2019. I like McNeese here a lot. Samford put us a bunch of points, but so is McNeese, and McNeese has a better defense. So Samford has a tougher schedule, but I'm going with McNeese. I think this is the Cinderella of McNeese this year. So I have them moving on to Sweet 16. South Carolina and Creighton. I will be going with Creighton to beat South Carolina and get to the Sweet 16. I love Creighton a lot here. I think they're Final Four threats this year. They have had some tough opponents. They played a great game against UConn. I watched a few weeks ago against UConn, absolutely dismantled them. Although UConn dismantled them when they were at UConn. St. John's was possibly a bubble team. This is probably the worst loss of the season for them, but they made up for it beating a Marquette team. And they beat an Alabama team. So I'm going with Creighton. I think they're a threat to make the Final Four. Tennessee versus Texas. Texas isn't as strong as they've normally been. They've lost early in rounds as well. Dalton Knecht has been solid for Tennessee, 21 points per game. I do think Tennessee will win this matchup, even though, I mean, it's a toss-up as 2 seeds are 8-9 against 7 seeds in the second round. So I do think Tennessee can beat the Black Cat running around the franchise, with Tennessee getting a Sweet 16 berth. So that's what I'm going with. New Mexico, I have an upset. McNeese, I have 2 Cinderellas with the 11-12 making the Sweet 16. And then up here, it's kind of chalk with 1-4, 2-3, 1-4, 2-3. So Sweet 16 matchups. UConn has easily the toughest bracket to get to the Final Four out of all the 1 seeds. It makes no sense. It's ridiculous as they are the number 1 overall seed. But this is I can see this matchup going either way with both these teams. Connecticut, one of 3 teams to win 31 game or over 30 games. Auburn, SEC champions. This game could go either way. Um, if Auburn was going against any other number one seed, I would pick Auburn to win, but because it's UConn, I'm going with UConn. But I love Auburn this year. This is a tough game for me to pick Auburn to lose in just because of how great they've been in a SEC tournament and throughout this entire year. If they were playing Houston, if roles were reversed, flip flop, Auburn was playing Houston, I would 100% pick Auburn to beat Houston, but they are not. They're playing UConn, so I'm going with the Huskies to win that. Illinois and Iowa State. Now, this is an interesting matchup between these two teams. Both teams have similar records, Big Ten versus Big 12, solid conferences. Um, I like both of these teams, but I like one more than the other. Even though two seeds are 36 and 23 against number three seeds, I like Illinois in this matchup a little bit more. Iowa State has only allowed 61 points per game. Illinois has scored 84 points per game, and something's got to give between this offensive Illinois and this defensive Iowa State. I think Shannon for Illinois has just been on a tear. Terrence Shannon, I think he will continue that tear in the tournament. I'm going with Illinois to beat Iowa State. Moving over to Houston versus Duke. Battle of a big blood. The number 4 seed going against the 1 seed in the Big 12 Houston Cougars. I like Houston in this matchup. I think their defense will be a very big struggle for Duke in this matchup. I know Duke can score some points. They got Kyle Filipowski averaging 17, Jeremy Roach's averaging 14 points per game. However, this is the big thing for me. Number 1 seeds have won 10 of the last 11 meetings with number 4 seeds in the past 8 tournaments. So I like Houston. Both I think this is gonna be a low scoring affair, which is why I like Houston to win that matchup. So yeah, I'm going with Houston to beat Duke. Moving over, Kentucky versus Marquette. Kentucky is so up and down that it's just hard for me to really trust them at all. Antonio Reeves is averaging 20 points per game. Rob Dillingham is averaging 15 points per game. They can put up points. Kentucky absolutely scores the basketball. They're averaging almost 90 points per game. They're almost giving up 80 points per game. So I've been going back and forth on this matchup the entire time, but I'm gonna go with Marquette just because Kentucky is just so up and down. I trust Marquette a little bit more, even though I think Kentucky's highest of highs is better than Marquette's highest of highs. I just trust Marquette a little bit more, so that's why I'm going with Marquette to get to the Elite Eight against Houston. Moving over to the final few matchups in the Sweet 16 with the West, North Carolina versus Alabama. I'm going with North Carolina here. I trust their defense. I trust I trust RJ. I trust Armando Bacot, both veteran guys. Mark Sears is great, but I just don't think this Alabama team is as strong as it has been in the past. Um, I trust this defense to show up against this 90 point per game Alabama team. So I'm going with UNC here to beat Alabama. New Mexico versus Arizona, 2 states right next to each other. I'm just gonna go out and say I'm going New Mexico to beat the Arizona Wildcats. I think this is the year of the New Mexico team and the 11th seed to get to the Elite Eight. I think Arizona, this is where the buck stops with them. The Lobos, I think, will upset the Wildcats. So even though the 2 seeds are 63 against number 11 seeds, although 2 of those 3 losses have come in the past 6 tournaments, so 11 seeds have upset 2 seeds in the past. I will be going with New Mexico to beat Arizona to continue their Cinderella story. TCU versus McNeese. I'm going with McNeese. I've said it since the beginning. McNeese in New Mexico have been my 2 Cinderella teams, and I do this every single year. I pick 1 or 2 Cinderellas, and they normally lose in the first round or the second round. So if we're going by those measures, maybe don't pick New Mexico and McNeese in your brackets, but that's what I'm going with. I don't know. I just got that magic, that Cinderella magic. I really don't have a reason why I'm going with McNeese and New Mexico to beat these 2 teams, but I just believe, and you got to believe at this time in March Madness. So I'm going with those 2 teams to make it to the Final Four, 11 versus and 12. Creighton and Tennessee. I'm going with Creighton. I think Tennessee, this is where their road stops. Tennessee has kind of been up and down. I trust Creighton a little bit more. I like I just like the way Creighton plays. They can play, they can win all facets of the game. I feel like Tennessee, if Dalton Connect is having an off night, I don't know if they can win the game. So I'm going with Creighton to beat the 2 seed in the Volunteers in that matchup to set up North Carolina versus 11 seed New Mexico and a 12 seed McNeese versus a 3 seed Creighton. Moving over to the Elite Eight to decide who goes to the Final Four. More chalk up here with 2 1 seeds with UConn and Illinois, and then Houston and Marquette. Tough matchup here. Tristan Newton is so good. I think Terrence Shannon 1 seeds are 14 and 17 against 3 seeds. I think this defense is legit and real, and I think Terrence Shannon, the buck stops here with him in Illinois. I love Terrence Shannon, but UConn, the way that they can play basketball, just all facets of the game. Dan Hurley, I think he'll come prepared for that game. I think he's probably looking down the line of possibly playing an Illinois team in the Elite Eight. So I'm going with UConn to win that matchup. Their defense is ecstatic. Houston and Marquette. Now, I don't I don't. I think either of these teams go to the Final Four, but I think either of these teams can lose in their first or second, or in their second or third round matchup. So, like, I'm not confident in really Houston or Marquette consistently. I think Houston's best is better than Marquette's best. I think Marquette can be a little bit more consistent at times. Houston's defense has shown to fumble at times. Only scored 41 points against Iowa State. I think it's going to take a lot more than just 41 points, 59 points, 46 points to beat Marquette. So I'm going with Marquette to beat the 1 seed Houston Cougars to go to the Final Four. 1 seed and 2 seed right now. North Carolina versus New Mexico. I think this is where the Final Four run for New Mexico ends here. I think the Cinderella story is great to see, but I just think it ends here with North Carolina with Armando Bacot, RJ Davis. I just think North Carolina will have some tape now on New Mexico with the 1-2 having 3 matchups in the tournament. I think they'll have some scouting they could do on New Mexico. So I think North Carolina will come prepared and win this game because they won't take New Mexico lightly. On my other Cinderella story, McNeese and Creighton. I'm going with Creighton here. I love Creighton. I love the way they play. I think they're a very consistent team, and it's tough for me to pick McNeese over Creighton, especially with now having tape on them as well. So I think Creighton wins, and this is our Final Four. We have 3 Big East teams, which kind of scares me. We have 1 ACC team, so we don't have a single Big 12 team, even though the Big 12 is the best conference in college basketball. And I said that in the first 2 rounds, but I just like Marquette Creighton's road to get to the Final Four. And same with North Carolina's. I love the road to get to the Final Four. I think it's a little bit easier than obviously UConn's. So it's pretty much chalk. I mean, a 2 1 seed, 2 seed, and a 3 seed, a lot of chalk here. And it scares me to have 3 Big East teams here, but that's kind of what we're going with right now. 1 seed matchups, UConn versus North Carolina. I think if UConn gets to the Final Four with the gauntlet that they're going up against, with the Final Four team, San Diego State possibly, Final Four team in Auburn, SEC champions with them, Big Ten champions in Illinois, Iowa State, Big 12 champions. Like there's this bracket is just so tough. Or FAU too could be a second round matchup and went to the Final Four as well. So I think if UConn could get to the Final Four, I think they'll get to the championship. And I'm going with UConn to get to the championship. Marquette versus Creighton. This is a tough matchup. I think actually I'm gonna change something up here. I think Houston will get to the Final Four, actually. Big change up. I think Houston will get to the Final Four. I just that I think that defense will show up. I think Houston's gonna have to leave on their defense to get to the Final Four, and I think they will. Their defense is the best, I think, in the nation probably. So I think I will go with that actually. Even though I really don't trust Houston to make it there. I really don't trust any of these teams to make it to the Final Four. Even UConn, and they're being the number one seed, and I have them getting the championship game. So, but I do think, yeah, I like Creighton get to the Final Four there. Yeah, I like Creighton getting to the Final Four. This is just tough to me to. Yeah, I mean, I could see Kentucky beat Marquette too. So, I mean, this is just so tough, but it's right here. All these matchups right here. Because I easily could see Marquette, Kentucky, Houston, all three of those teams going to the Final Four. Ah, I'd never trust John Calipari in the tournament, but I feel like if he's gonna ever make it deep, I think it's gonna be now or never. Give me Kentucky actually to beat Marquette. I had Marquette going to the Final Four, now I'm having them losing in this in the yeah Sweet 16. Geez, let me go back and look at this matchup. Yeah, I'll go with Kentucky here. It's now or never. This is the last time I'm ever trusting Kentucky and John Calipari to make a deep run. If they don't make a deep run, never do it again. Houston and Kentucky. I think Houston will beat Kentucky though. I think the defense will show up. They give up a ton of points that too as well. So I think it'll be a low scoring game, and I think that favors Houston more than it favors Kentucky. I'm going with Creighton to upset though, to beat Houston to go to the national championship. UConn versus Creighton. I think if UConn gets to this point, everyone's picking UConn, but so am I. They were the first pick in my tournament to start this bracket. They will be my last pick in this tournament. I think if UConn could get to the Final Four, they win. They win it all with the gauntlet they have to go through. I could easily see all four of these teams losing. I could easily see um, Tennessee. I could easily see Creighton. I think Creighton. I feel more positive in Creighton going to the Final Four than any of the other teams. To be honest with you, I just like their matchups. I don't trust Purdue yet, as I've said. I don't trust Arizona. I think North Carolina and Creighton. I think have the easiest routes to get to the Final Four. I could easily see Iowa State going to the Final Four. I could easily see Marquette, Kentucky going to the Final Four. You could easily see Houston going to the Final Four, Illinois going to the Final Four, UConn, Auburn. Like, there's just so many teams that could go to the Final Four in the East and the South that it's just so difficult to choose. But I think this is my bracket. UConn back-to-back national titles. I think I think it'll be in the 80s. I think it'll be 164. I think both teams put up 80 points, but I'm going with UConn to repeat as national champions. There's my bracket. I mean, this easily could be busted in the first few hours of the first day. So